Hey there, I'm Niyama Shang, leader of the Trailblazer Oasis, and I'm really thrilled to be able to talk to you about something that's been working on my mind recently. There's a distinction that I talk about around outliers versus trailblazers. And to me, an outlier is anyone who is taking the time to own the things that make them different. They are able to create incredible success despite the odds. It's almost like the average is doing one thing and the outlier is creating either the same or better results, even though it didn't really seem like it would be possible. And then talk about trailblazers a lot. And trailblazers to me are people who are outliers who've decided to not just own what makes them different for themselves, but to leverage that in order to make a difference for others, to lead others, to create change in the world. And what is really interesting about this is that over the last few years, I've been going on my own outlier to trailblazer journey. And throughout that journey, I've been finding more and more about what are the things that make me different. And the challenge with that has been it's almost like you can see it in other people, but you can't see it for yourself. And along that journey, that journey actually took me through a path of going from the name Nemo to really owning the name Niyama. And along that journey, there are a number of different people who came into play to help me see more of myself and to help me discover more of myself. And not just discover it, but to actually be able to embrace it. Because it's one thing to know that to get the sense that you're different. There's one thing to get the sense that there's something about you. And there's another to be able to actually take it on and not just say and accept it, but to leverage it and use that to go forward. It's part of the things that allows me to play or that like enables my trailblazer aspects of sitting here and talking to you right now, sitting here and talking to you and coaching with others and doing it in a visible way of actually creating my movement, creating the things that I want in the world through that. And so I'm going to invite you to find someone who can help you see yourself more clearly, who can help you discover the things that make you different and not just accept it, but embrace and leverage it. Today, we get the chance to talk to Kristen, and Kristen's one of those people who's been instrumental on my journey. Kristen is someone who has skills in a number of different coaching techniques, but also, or coaching experience, but also in business, in making a tremendous impact in the world. And I'm thrilled to be able to spend some time today serving her. Kristen, it's wonderful to have you here.
Thanks
Today,
for having me.
oh, most certainly. I can feel myself just like, I can feel my entire body like lightening up and just being like excited for today's conversation. So Kristen, I love to in our conversations, we're going to be talking about the inner journey, right? But I want to get a chance to see what's the outer journey for you. What's if someone was watching a movie of your life, or seeing from the outside, who is Kristen? Can you share a little bit about who you are for us?
So my outer self, like who
Yeah,
people say,
yeah. What do people see? Like it's basically like let us know
a
about you.
wild and crazy woman. Uh, it's so funny, actually. It's hard to tell you that because I'm so close to the inner person. What do people see? Well, they see a mother. I have an 11-year-old son,
Mm.
and I would say that family is my highest value. So that's a big way that I'm currently showing up in my life is as a mother. I am a coach and a consultant currently. I work mostly with women entrepreneurs. I This is my fourth career. Prior to coaching and consulting, I started and ran a nonprofit organization called the Samburu Project, and our focus was clean water as a foundation to development. And basically, what we did in terms of brass tacks is we drilled wells to provide clean drinking water to communities in northern Kenya. And part of that, I was an executive at Paramount Pictures, I worked in network television as a creative executive. So I was overseeing half-hour and 1-hour TV shows. And actually, before being a creative executive, I was a talent scout at Paramount, looking for new talent. I actually was at Paramount for 10 years, and within that time, I had 3 different jobs. And so in my 4 different careers and 1 career, I held 3 different positions. And then prior to that, I was actually an elementary school teacher as part of the Teach for America program. So I taught elementary school in Houston, Texas. And then actually I moved to LA and I taught it for a year in LA as well. So I have a very wide range of experience. So maybe that would make me jack of all trades, master of none.
It's very interesting because whenever I hear the jack of all trades thing, recently I have a new distinction. I'm like, yeah, there are jacks of all trades, but for me, I'm a joker. I am the person that you can play as the wild card, and whenever you play me, I'm gonna win. It's just like all of a sudden, it's like I'm the cheat code in that regard there.
Right.
So
I like that.
yeah,
I like it. Yeah.
yeah. There's an element there. That's so from teacher. Now I'm trying to think about this chronologically.
Yeah.
It was teacher to then you started working at Paramount.
Yeah. Well, actually, there was a year between teaching and Paramount. I worked for a casting director as her assistant. Her name was Vicki Rosenberg. She's no longer with us in the human form today. She passed a few years ago, but I worked for her, and our primary show that we worked on was the show Married with Children.
How fun! Like, so this is like, I'm thinking about your journey here. This is for Married with Children. This is a really incredible journey here. And then, so you also spend time as an executive in a nonprofit. Like, can you tell us about like the impact? You said like the brass tacks was driving the wells in Kenya. Can you tell us about the impact? How many lives have you touched through that? How many?
So the organization to date has drilled over 100 wells, like 110, I think. And a well brings clean water to 1,000 people. So you do the math.
Yeah, exactly.
It's well over 100,000 people that have been impacted from the water perspective.
Yeah.
And then the organization has done a lot of other things, educational programs and women's empowerment initiatives and agricultural projects. Yeah. So it's the impact is quite tremendous in terms of numbers of people touched.
And I really want to like just acknowledge just how powerful you are in the journey that you've gone on to create impact everywhere that you've been. Like what I get about to have 4 different careers with 7 different jobs and be like throughout that process there. It's like the when I was talking about the Joker part, I didn't mean that like as just like a quick little quip. It's actually, I'm like, there's something actually, you have mastered something. The mastery is in the ability to recreate yourself. The mastery is in the ability to be the kind of person who can have such different jobs, to go from Teach for America to working on like Married with Children, like that jump in and of itself can see something, right? So
yeah, tell me about it. So I left teaching. I was teaching in LA Unified 3rd grade, and so I finished that job up like at some point in June. And then like a couple of weeks later, I was like in a casting office in my new job. And it's funny because at the time I thought it took forever to get the job, and it was like 2 weeks. And we were casting for Ted Bundy. Ted Bundy? No, Al Bundy. It's not Ted Bundy. Al Bundy. Him and his buddies used to go to the strip club. And so we were casting, for strippers for the strip club. And it was all like porn stars that came into the office. And I'm like, oh my God, I've gone from like educating young minds to porn stars.
Yeah.
Like I was like, this is totally in LA.
And it's like, I'm curious about that there. Like just as we go on here, there is something there. There is like a mastery in there. And, I was talking about some of the things that came to mind in my mind, it's like, oh wow, who would you need to be able to consistently reinvent yourself that way? If you had to put on something, if there was one thing that you mastered that might be a little bit more on the meta mode or not in the yeah, like what's the one skill or what's the one thing about you that has allowed for these kinds of transitions to be teaching in the classroom 1 week and then 3 weeks later, this, having your entire office full of porn stars that you're casting, and then beyond that
Yeah,
too,
it's
right? Consistently
interesting.
do that.
Part of me doesn't think I know how to do anything.
Mm-hmm.
And on some level, a lot of times when I'm tired of the entrepreneurial journey, I'm like, I'm just going to get a job. And like, I start looking at like LinkedIn to see what's out there. And I'm like, there's nothing I can do. And that really is maddening. I'm always like, I've done all kinds of shit. And there's like nothing I think I can do. So, I think a lot of it is tenacity. I was having a conversation with my clients that I'm working with right now in a consulting job. And, we're talking about 2020 and like what that was going to look like for us. And I was like, look, this is the bottom line. For me, I am not interested in working for a failing company. So I'm going to do what it takes to have the company succeed. And my expectation is that you will too. Mm-hmm. Like failure is not an option. And I think that's part of it for me. Like I am not willing to fail. I mean, I do fail and I failed a ton, but I'm not willing to not like try as hard as I possibly can.
Yeah.
And I think that's part of it. It's like just being dedicated to like making something happen. Like most of the stuff I do, I have no idea what I'm doing. Mm-hmm. Every job I've had is learn on the job. And the world is moving so quickly now. It's like, I don't understand. Like, I don't understand right now. I'm learning like how you sell stuff on Amazon. I don't know how to do that. But I'm willing to learn about it. Like I'm willing to become an expert at it. I was just on the phone today with somebody. I'm not a peddler. I've never sold anything like actually, that's not true. When I went to Kenya, when I first started the Samburu project, I thought that I was going to do a side hustle and sell like dog collars and stuff. Ironically, this new company I'm working with is selling that stuff, like beaded stuff from Kenya. And so I started like doing the markets, like not antique markets, whatever, like Saturday markets, like where you have your tent, you sell your stuff. I hated it. I tried that for a minute. That was like I did like 2 markets and I was like, no fucking way is this for me. But anyway, I'm willing to like dive all in and figure out what has to what needs to happen. Like I was telling someone this the other day, and it was not in relationship to business. It was actually in relationship to like personal development. And she was sort of like looking at all these potential barriers of like her success. And it was particularly with her food program. And I was like, look, everything is figure outable. Like everything can be figured out if you want it to. And I think that's what I have been committed to is like figuring it out. Like I fucking figured out how to teach. I hope I can swear on your podcast.
You can do. Yeah, this is a place for us to be us. So we're good.
That's because it's part of my personality.
Yeah. Yeah.
I can't. If you want the real Kristen, there'll be some F-bombs.
That's the only thing that we're asking for today.
But anyway, it's like I had no fucking idea to teach elementary school. I still don't think I figured it out completely, but like I figured it out enough to like be the teacher for 3 classrooms of kids. Like
yeah,
no one ever sent me a letter later saying the kids fucking failed their lives because I was their 3rd or 5th grade teacher. I didn't study TV. Like I didn't even like TV, quite honest. TV is not even my thing. So I got a job in the entertainment business and then actually, was promoted as like an executive. Like when I never even watched TV growing up, because when I was growing up, I grew up with 9 brothers and sisters and we had 1 television and no cable. Like, and I was like the 9th, the last, and I was one of the one of three of the girls in the family, and like we didn't get to. I had no rights to the television, so I didn't have a historical experience with TV. And a lot of people that work in TV, or at least back in the day when I was working in television, they had like this thing about TV, like it was their dream to work in television. I was like, I just thought it would be fun, you know.
Absolutely.
But then I worked my ass off. I was there. So one of my really good friends and mentors, her name is Rose Catherine Pinkney. She was when I was an assistant at Paramount, because I started as the assistant to the head of casting. She would always she would give me a lot of advice. A lot of it was unsolicited, but I took it anyway. And she told me, she's like, Kristen, if you want to do well in this business, you have to stay to the end. And what that meant was, like, we would shoot TV shows, mostly during pilot season. And sometimes we should be shooting the shows until like 2:00 in the morning. And I was like an assistant, like I wasn't helping. Do you know what I mean? Like I was just there, like supporting the cause, right? And I would fucking stay every time until like 2:00. Whenever I was always there. And guess what? I got promoted. And a thing that, so it's like I did get a couple good pieces of advice too.
Yeah, absolutely. We all do along that way.
And it's like I figured it out. Like I figured out how to give notes to seasoned executive producers when I just had to like learn to have an opinion. I learned a bit about how television production works or whatever. I wasn't an expert in that. That wasn't really was required of me.
So
but everything I've done, I've just, I've been willing to figure it out.
So let me ask you really quickly, because I think so I'm hearing a couple different things. I want to slow down even more here, right? What I'm hearing here is like the willingness to figure it out. I think that there's also in there like the courage to actually to do it messy along the way. I'm assuming that was part of it along the way.
I'm not sure about that.
Okay, tell me more.
I needed to, I wanted people to think they knew what I was fucking doing.
Yeah.
I was never pretending that I didn't know what I was doing.
Mm-hmm.
Inside, I might have felt like I didn't know what I was doing, but I didn't, I definitely had imposter syndrome.
Okay.
For sure. Because I really didn't know what I was doing.
So that's like that to me is the part is really interesting, right? Because it's like you're someone who's gonna figure it out. Like, and in my mind, I was just asking, like, what does it take to be someone that does that, right? And it's something that we can go back and look at. But I actually think it'd be really interesting to just be like where we are right now and just be in this moment, because we get like who you've been to create what it is that you've been creating, right? And I really like love seeing this because I'm learning more about you, and I feel like I can deepen thinking. I'm like, oh, 1 of 9, like that's really fun there. So I'm curious now, just so like, what's going on in your world right now, and then let's shift into like how we can in the play and service there.
Well, it's kind of actually interesting that you asked that, because I'm like, my mind's going like 1,000 different places. Like, there's a lot going on. Mm-hmm. And at the same time, sort of the playing field is different than it used to be.
Mm. Tell me more.
So that's an interesting thing. So I'm going to tell you what's going on, but I want to preface it with something. So, when I was a young executive at Paramount, like all I had to do was like work. I know the real responsibilities. And when I was starting the Sam Brewer project, all I had to do was work. And then at some point in the Sam Brewer project, 3 years in, I had a child. And I still was working my ass off. And so one of the things I'm doing right now, and I can tell you what I'm actually literally doing, but overarchingly doing, and one thing I really committed to in the last 4 years since I left the Sam Brewer project, it's really about creating a business that works for me. And I'm still like, I haven't figured it out. I've had some great days. But it's like this conundrum of how do you build a really successful business and completely honor your highest values. So whereas, let's say prior to building this business, my current coaching and consulting business, I could go balls to the walls, like doing anything I did, which helps with success. Like time on task just fucking helps, right? And now my choice is not to put as much time on task because I have an 11-year-old son. I'm a single parent. And my highest value is in spending time with my kid because I know that I'm in a window that's like super short. And then the funny thing is too, today I was just reading literally right before we got on the phone, an article from Inc. Magazine. You know, it is like Bill Gates's. I have to read it to you like because it's really good. The 4 things that create happiness. And you know, I'm not going to go.
Well,
through
yeah, right now, no, that's not what we need
but
right
anyway,
now. I'll check it out.
But number 4 was like spending more time with family. And it's like, yeah. So right now, like where I am is it was an interesting, why I bring that up is that it was a confirmation. Like I know I'm in that anyway, but like, it's always good to read that stuff. Like Bill Gates is saying, spend more time with your family. I know so I can't approach my business and building my business in the same balls to the wall kind of way that I did. So there's a thing about, like, what am I up to right now? Like, what am I creating? And then there's this maybe even more important thing is like, how am I creating it?
Yeah. So let's go there. Let's stay with that. Let's stay with that.
Yeah.
Would that work for you?
Yeah.
Yeah. So if you had to right now, like if we were just going to spend some time focused on you and just like, what would you say? What would serve you the most? Like, all right, we're in this part of the conversation and really being able to say, like you're building your business is going well, but there's also this element of like, you have your highest value and how do you know how to work really hard and create what it is, you know how to figure it out and, stay till the end, you know what it's like to just go all in there. And if I'm getting you right, there's a question you have that's in your mind around, okay, I want to build success a different way. So I'm hearing a couple different things. If we're really going to just dive into this and play and explore this and give you a chance to see it from a different place here, what would we need to talk about specifically?
I don't know. I'm having a hard time coming to an articulation. So, I think for me, I have to come to a place of like a place where I'm more patient. Like I think that's for me. It's like I have to be patient. Like I can't expect everything to happen overnight. I have an impatience problem for sure. And patience has helped my success because I'm like, let's get some shit done. And so my timing is different, and I think that's part of it. So patience. Like, how do I build a business patiently? Because this is a business that I have that I can envision like going into retirement, like whatever that is, like, or whatever. In my retirement, I would still be doing it. Like, I'm building because I'm probably never going to retire. Like, I just don't see that happening. Mm-hmm. I want to be in my retirement now. Like, I'm trying to build a business where like I am on retirement and I'm working.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
I really get that.
I have a high value on travel and adventure too. So I do that. So, maybe part of it is like, how can I be more patient with myself? because but probably my biggest barrier, right, is for me is my brain and like self beat around not going fast enough.
Yeah. Yeah.
That
Awesome.
makes sense.
There's parts of it. Let me ask you, does it make sense to you?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. If that's where we need to be playing. I'm really curious then, because what I heard from you is that throughout your journey, you've been able to just like figure it the fuck out, you know? And so there's a part of me that's, as I'm hearing about some of the barriers here, I'm actually really curious around like, what does this business look like? What is it that you're actually, what's the possibility that you are creating? I get some of like the ideals and the values that are building up along with
Hmm.
it. Um, but if there was something that you needed to figure out and you're like actually creating it, what would it look like? If this was already figured out, what would it be looking like for you?
Well, my business has like some different verticals. So, I have this one vertical where I do one-to-one coaching with clients, mostly women entrepreneurs, women in business, women executives. And then I have this other vertical where I teach groups. I lead groups. So my initial entry group is a group around um, the book Invisible Warfare, which was my teacher, Mona Miller's book that you know about. Um, so I do that. And then, I have this other vertical where I do consulting work where I help people with their businesses, usually women entrepreneurs. I have one particular client that I'm putting a lot of time into right now. So I'm actually in the business. Like I am in the business. I am talking to people. Helping. I'm helping them build the business, like literally. Like I'm doing a lot of that work. I'm
Mm-hmm.
having the conversations. I'm structuring things together. I'm in the P&L. I'm doing all of that. So, um, for me, it's like, do I want to do lots of different things, or do I want to focus on one thing? I think the answer is I want to do lots of different things because I get bored pretty easily. And then the other piece is like, how do I think that the thing that I'm most passionate about is uh, the emotional processing work that I teach, the book. And so, for a long time, my vision was about creating a space in order to do that. And then that's suddenly like, well, then you're like a shop owner, and do you want to do that? Like, do you want to own a studio and like have to have employees and shit that way? Just my head's just going. And then it's interesting. One of my clients came to me at the end of the year, and she's like, I actually think that you should, like, I want to do something with you, and I want to create an app around this work. Like, she's done the work with me. She's actually in a second group right now, and she's like, I want. And so we've started that process where we're looking at developing that. And I'm like, whoa, I never thought about that. Like I thought about maybe teaching a course, like creating a course. Um, I thought about, doing this actual space. And then, and so we've been in conversation about creating that too. So that's probably, in terms of an opportunity for a home run, that's my fucking home run opportunity.
You know what, Kristen? As you're talking here, I realized that like the question I asked, like in some senses, it almost feels like an impossible question. I'm realizing that like here, because as you're talking about this here, I was like, the question I asked you was like, what's the possibility you love to create,
Right.
And you started talking like, I have this vertical, I have this vertical, I have this vertical. I'm doing this. I'm in it here. That's exciting to me. I'm also like, now there's app here. And as you were talking, I was like, oh, this is a person who is already in her retirement. She's not like you've actually crossed a part of that line, right? And in terms of, I guess the thing is, what I get about you is that there's almost always going to be something else that would excite you, that will call you in there. Like in terms of it being done, it almost feels like you've crossed the threshold of the done part, and you're in the space of like, okay, now I got to play with whatever whatever's calling to Kristen in the moment. It's like emotional processing is going to be like a passion that will continue to carry through as a thread. There's work that will, like, women entrepreneurs will probably carry through as a thread. But like now we're talking apps, and you're like, that feels like fun too. And given your track record of being in every, like, being all over, and being able to be that joker there, it's that's on its way, right? That will happen. Should you decide to be tenacious and dedicate yourself to it and just like figure it out, you'll have your app. So I think the question that comes to mind here then is going back to the part around the highest values, and really like what I'm thinking about here is around like what's going to enable that, such that no matter what the vision is that's coming out, no matter what it is that you're figuring out or you're dedicated to in a moment, how can we make sure that that part comes first, and you're taken care of and you're fulfilled on that value first and foremost, knowing that like it seems that your visions are always going to take you in different places. So let's spend some time on that. When I say that, what comes up for you on that?
Well, I think I'm still trying to figure that out. Like that's the part I haven't figured it out yet, because like even this last month, I, got into the holiday crazy. And by the way, sort of like another piece of the value, like my family, it's the self-care, like all of it has to be front loaded with like self-care, right? For me. Because I have to be in integrity with the way that I'm showing up for me in my life in order to do what I'm doing. So, but what I noticed was like this last month, leading up to the holidays, let's say between Thanksgiving and then like after New Year, a lot of my shit went out the door. And I was like, whoa. So I was looking back on it, like I've just been in this place of like super curiosity about it. Like, why did I go out the door? Like, why did my habit stacks go away? Like, what happened? Because that's all part of like creating the business that works for me. And that's all the life and the business, like it's all sort of connected. So I'm like in a major overhaul right now, personally. Like, oh, I got to bring it back to like basics. So I'm not even going after new business right now, because I have to like fucking rein my shit back in, get my stuff, because I got to have this foundation, right? It's like taking care of Kristen and living with the family. So the family is the highest value, right? Because I can't even do the family thing if I'm not taking care of me.
Yeah.
So like it got really out of control. And part of that was like I took on this new client and it's been taking a lot of my time. And so it got a little wobbly. So I'm on reset right now of like, okay, hold it, Kristen. Like, how are you like in the highest values, like family, including you as your family and taking care of yourself. So I'm on reset. And I actually had a conversation yesterday with somebody, interestingly, it's another consulting possibility, who, by the way, in this per business, I have no idea how to make her business successful. So it's like the idea of taking on yet another thing that like, I don't know what the fuck I'm doing, but I'll fucking figure it out. I was like, and I just told her, I was like, you know what? I got a lot of great information about your business. We're going to talk next week. Like, I got to think about it. Like I had to think about like, can I hold this baseline if it's really important to me and take on another client that is going to require a lot because she doesn't know how to do what wants to do. So I don't know if I'm making any sense or not, but it keeps requiring me to go back. The highest values thing keeps requiring me to go back to baseline and practice a shitload of forgiveness when I go back into my old bad habits. Like I have to fucking, because I can go in a place of self, be like, Kristen, you know better, blah, 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 like I know, so much better. But I feel like almost in a way, it's like, I feel like my son's in 5th grade, so he's studying like the explorers. Like it's uncharted territory. Like there aren't a lot of really, truly like examples of people that are living in a way that super honors themselves in their highest values and creating amazing businesses. Like there just ain't a whole lot of it, you know? And so that's where I feel like I'm a trailblazer. Like I'm failing fucking miserably, you know?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And then I'm like, okay, here I am again. Like I'm failing and then I'm okay. So that doesn't mean that I'm going to go into like overdrive on my business. I'm going to come back here, get my foundation straight, and then because if I get into the place where like I'm into too many businesses that I have no fucking idea what I'm doing, I have to figure it out.
Yeah.
Like I might get a little lopsided, and that's not good for Kristen. So I don't know if I'm explaining myself well, but
Don't worry about don't worry about explaining yourself as much as you think here. Like there's some things that are coming out that are real
okay,
gems.
good.
So like,
Then I'm glad.
well, I'll tell you some of what
And the
like
sun's coming out in Los Angeles.
I'll tell you some of the things that I'm hearing. Like what I'm hearing here is a bit of like your process of figuring it out, and right where you're like you know what it is that you're building, you're moving down, and you're taking action, and then like I'm hearing your process of figuring it out, and I'm also hearing that you have your some indicators on, right? You're like the shit went out the door, and what I didn't hear was that, and then 3 years went by, and I realized like, oh, I've been going down the wrong path. It was like it happened over the span of a month or whatever,
Yeah, it's like 30 to 45 days.
exactly. But what I'm hearing is that like I'm like is that cycle was 30 to 45 days, you know, and now like you have that indicator on, and you're going back and you're saying, okay, how do I like tweak this going forward, like something like so that almost feels like it's part of what the process is. The next time it'll take 30 days, or the next time it'll take 15 days, or whatever it is. So I'm curious, especially as you're going in the uncharted territory. It's because it's uncharted. It almost feels like, can we really plot our way directly to this territory, because no one's been there, you know? Like you are one of the people that will, like, when they share your story, when you share your story, they're like, oh, okay, like literally, I'm glad that you're on this journey, because it's like you're the person who's going to figure it out. Like that's just what you do. It's one of your highest skills. So there's a part of me that's curious around, as you're navigating this uncharted territory, what are the indicators that will make you know when you're like heading off path? What are the things that you saw with that you talked about? Your habits went out the door. You talked about all these things.
Yeah.
What are the indicators that will help you know that this is actually not?
So I'm not doing my daily yoga practice. Mm-hmm. Like yoga's not happening every day. Mm-hmm. Because in my world, it has to happen every day. Mm-hmm. It might not be a full practice. It might be some modified version, but something has to happen every day. That's kind of that is one of my most important things. And the other thing is my food. You know, if my food's off, like I don't eat flour and sugar.
Yep. If
I start eating flour and sugar, or, you know, partaking of the divine continence of Viv Clicquot or something, that's an indicator that something's off for me. Because my decision is not to put that stuff in my body. Mm-hmm. So,
what else? What else might be an indicator for you on yourself?
If I'm not doing my processing, so if I'm not doing my emotional processing work myself, I know I'm in trouble.
What's like a really small innocuous one? Like I'm thinking about myself when I because I'm also someone that's always walking in uncharted territory, and I love to have my compass to let me know where I'm going, but I catch things of like, oh, actually you're spiraling out and you don't even know it yet. And it's like the simplest things. For me, it's dishes piling up in the kitchen. And in my relationship, I'm the dishwasher. I don't cook anything. I'm the dishwasher. And I can tell when it's like, it's like my visual cue. I can see it, and I'm like, oh, I must be really like stressed out right now, or I might not. I'm feeling really anxious because I'm
Yeah.
choosing to just pile in and say like, I'll get to that. That's not important. I'll get to it, and it's become my visual. That's one of my visual indicators. It's so small. Like people would just be like,
Yeah.
no one else
Makes a
would think about
difference.
it, but it's just there. Is there anything like that shows up for
Yeah.
you that like,
That would probably be a good indicator for me too. Or like if I stop making my bed in the morning, I know
okay,
that's a problem.
okay,
Like if I'm not taking the time to make my bed in the morning, something's off.
yeah, yeah. So like there's something powerful in just that super small action of
Hmm.
making the bed, and like if and just to give you like, all right, so now it might be 30, 40 days before we see it in one way, but we can go like 1 or 2 days and notice like, wait a minute,
Hmm.
it's been 2 days since I've made my bed. Maybe I should slow down, because it's not about getting it. Like what I'm hearing from you is like when you're figuring it out, it's not about getting it perfect. You don't consider it messy, but there might be failures along the way. That's like you're good with that. You're actually able to take some time to slow down and like and reassess and get back to baseline and say what
Well,
comes
yeah,
out.
because when you look back at the holidays, it's like, so what? Like, so what if everyone didn't get presents? Who gives a shit? Like the
Mm-hmm.
last thing anybody in my family actually needs is another Christmas present. Like nobody needs it. Like, so what if my holiday cards didn't go out? You know, like, so what? So it's like, it's that kind of stuff where it's like, yeah, my self care and my highest values are not, it's not about getting people presents and spending time with people. Like, that's important to me. Um,
And did you do that? Were you in alignment with that?
I did.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's an element of this here when I'm hearing you speak right now. It's like it's not about other people's values here. You were actually honoring your own value here, and spending time with people was important to you, and you made sure that that part happened.
Yeah.
The external, like the expectations from the outer part, like that's at this point less. It was less of a priority to you. Am I getting that right?
Yeah. And just, it's interesting because sometimes I wonder, like, there just seems to be so many things to do, you know? And there's definitely a piece where it's like, in order to live in my highest values, I have to be willing to not do certain things. And maybe it's like buying the Christmas presents and there's probably work stuff that I could have said no to. I tend to get into way, longer conversations than I should have, like I tend to uh, sometimes overgive in the creation process with clients. There's plenty of things. So, it's prioritizing time too and what is really important with my time. And I like what I always say is like you have to front load. Like you gotta front load about high value stuff. Like I front load my habits that are all the self care stuff. I front load the time that I have with my son. Um, like that all has to go on the calendar first, and then like everything else gets to go on the calendar. Like as opposed to like that goes before work. That goes before everything.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So you like, and that shows your priority there. That
Yeah.
feels like. So I'm going to ask you one more question here that I want to make sure also comes in here. So I'm hearing all the things that you're doing, and I had a distinction. Literally this morning, I like got out of bed and I was about to put my feet on the ground, and those first 6 seconds in the morning are like the worst for me. There's a lot of negative self talk before my feet hit the ground. It's awful, and then
I'd
the
give
rest of
you
the
a
day come on.
couple of tips for that.
Okay, well, like no, I want more than a couple of tips. I want to spend some time processing with you. The day after I went
Yeah, I can
processing with
help you
you,
with
like,
that.
yeah,
Easy. Yeah, I
okay,
got it. Because I understand that. We
yeah,
have stuff going on in our dream state.
yeah,
It
okay.
fucks us up from when we wake up in the morning. Yeah.
Let's talk about that, because I know the power of your work. I had some of like the
Yeah.
best times right after our last session, um, but there is when I did get up there, there was this thing that came in my mind, which is like there's niyama and then there's like the business of niyama, right? And there's a lot of times where I conflate like niyama has to do this here, and I don't really make the distinction that actually Niyama doesn't, but the business needs to have that there.
Mm-hmm.
And like something you had said earlier here was talking about like, like how do you really like look at it as a business and see things from that light. So I am curious here around some of the things that I'm kind of curious if it's like, does it have to be Kristen that's taking care of this stuff? Perhaps it's like, is there I'm really curious about what support you're getting. And is there a way that you can get like some support to take care of the things that you consider to be important, but like not in the highest priorities as it comes to the rest of your values?
Right. Yeah, probably I'm not that's probably an area that I'm not great at, is I'm not great at getting support. For sure. Like I've not been good in general on a lot of different avenues, Like I'm the person that never had a babysitter. You know what I mean? Like I had some good stuff with my son because he went to an amazing preschool and that helped. But it was like I didn't have a lot of support. And and part of it was because I wanted to spend time with my kid. But yeah, I could probably get better at getting some support for my, probably personal and business.
There's something that seems like there might be some space for you, especially because I'm hearing the life that you are living. I'm hearing the life that you are already creating and experiencing. So as that goes on, and I'm also hearing you being someone that's like, I'm going to figure things out. I'm going to put in the time. You're putting in your priorities as it is, and there's a lot. And so there's these small elements where I'm like, I wonder what it'd be like if you had someone that came and took care of this part of it for you, and you had someone that was thinking about the presence, or you had like all these different things that don't have to only be on you.
Yeah.
Because it feels like you've been building things up in such a way that would actually allow and support that in a very meaningful way.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's true. This is true.
So as we leave here, we were talking about indicators. We were talking about the indicators as it appears to you. But you did mention you had two really high priorities, which is like it's your family, with yourself being your family, making sure that that's taken care of, and then also like your family in terms of spending time with your son and so on and so forth. So I would be also interested in seeing, like, we won't go into it now, but like a question that I would leave you with is, what are the indicators that part of the value might be off for you as well, and to be able to look at it from the family perspective as well.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
It's directly. I'm going to answer something really quickly.
Yeah.
It's directly related to how much I'm fighting with my son.
Yeah. Yep. When it comes to the family space, there's a lot. Yeah. It's like
it's directly related to our fights.
Yeah. So like spend some time with that there. Like I can see that you're like, I can see exactly where it is.
Yeah.
There's elements here, but it feels just like you're on your path, and I really want to just like acknowledge and honor you for choosing to be one of those pioneers, choosing to go into that uncharted territory, choosing to trailblaze in this way, because we are on the journey with you, figuring it out on our own, and also exchanging and seeing how it is that we're navigating as we go through it all. So I want to thank you for really showing up here, being open, honest, and really sharing your journey, not just how it was, but how it is, and being with all of that in this moment here.
Thank you.
We'll go ahead and end things here.
Hey, Niyama here. Hit the subscribe button if you haven't yet, and then go ahead and leave one of your insights from today's video in the comments below. If you're looking to take this deeper, you can go and watch another video, or you can go to niyama.com/tribe to get exclusive invitation to our tribe member only events. I'll see you soon.